Hello, welcome to A New Day with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Yockey, and today I'm excited to be sharing with you a gentleman who has an amazing story of who come out of severe depression and is about getting his message out to the world. Like many of you, Greg's life has been filled with challenges, setbacks, loneliness, and pain, including the loss of his youngest son, Connor, in 2014. Greg has become an expert in daily survival over the last 40 years, dealing with severe depression and anxiety. In spite of his long battle, Greg has become an international award-winning photographer, best-selling author, sought-after speaker, and master life coach. Greg's book, The Depression Miracle, is a #1 bestseller in 6 countries. Through the grace of God and a medical miracle, Greg has overcome his depression and anxiety and found a passion for helping others deal with this terrifying, lonely, and misunderstood disease. His view is radically different. Unlike many mental health professionals, Greg's expertise comes from his personal daily struggles for over 4 decades. He has amazing insight regarding mental health issues and works with people battling those challenges. Greg has been there, lived it, and beat it. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm really excited for you to share your journey with us on the show today and have the audience just really wrap their minds around the possibility of actually being able to work through depression and anxiety. Let's start with the beginning. Since you dealt with it for 40 years, like what was that like for you?
Well, as far back as I can remember, it started, unfortunately, like probably a lot of your listeners, at age 7 was when I was beginning to be molested. And I was molested till I was 12, several times a week. And I think that's probably where the depression and the anxiety and really not understanding life. This is how life is supposed to go. Yeah. But I remember just not being happy as a teenager. The first time I tried to commit suicide, I was 16. Started to walk out in front of a truck that was coming, and my best friend stopped me. Helped me get through that day. But it just, finally when I was married a couple of years and just going through terrible paranoia and panic and depression, finally got to a doctor, and it finally got a name. And I was dealing with an anxiety disorder. I was dealing with bipolar depression. Once it had a name, okay, what do we do to beat it? What do we do to fix it? Up until that point, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just thought I was losing my mind. Mm-hmm. And once it had a name, then I could start this long journey, which I didn't think would be 40 years, to beat it and go through everything I went through. On the journey, I was on 45 different medications throughout the journey. Had 18 different therapists and doctors and counselors. I was in 4 mental hospitals, so I've seen the bottom of the bottom. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is that I talk about in my book is that it only takes one miracle. Yeah. And what the book does is put people in a position to receive a miracle. And I know they happen because I received mine.
Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to acknowledge you for your being vulnerable and sharing, that kind of trauma. And you're right, many people, whether they've shared the history of their, being molested or somehow sexually abused, people just don't deal with that stuff, they bottle it in. And so I just want to acknowledge you for being vulnerable and having the courage to share that story, especially hearing it from a man, because for me, I believe there's just a lot of compassion and empathy because of the amount of courage that it takes for a man to share such history, especially because of the era, you know what I mean, where guys come from. It's not okay. It's, you know, it's a big topic that I definitely think a lot of men, if they start talking about it, the freedom and the peace of mind that can come with that is huge. So tell me more about your miracle.
Well, the miracle was a process, the whole thing. And as I look back, everything fell into place. Once I started to trust life, once I started to just not give up and just have patience with what I'm dealing with. It wasn't going to go away overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what the miracle was going to be, but I knew that miracles happened every day.
Yeah.
And my first day in a mental hospital, which I didn't volunteer to go there, I was physically taken there by family friends. I decided and asked myself the question, how long do I want to be like this?
Yeah.
A year, a month, 6 months, 10 years, the rest of my life? And I decided not one more day longer than I needed to. That I was going to do whatever I could to do this. I understood the only person that was going to make me better, there'll be a lot of people to support me, is me. And I had to flip the switch. I had to do everything I could because nobody could do it for me. And so everything fell into place about 5 years ago, where I was in a therapist's office, as bad as I'd ever been, on a bipolar just down spiral. And I just threw a fit and I said, I'm leaving, I don't like you. And she stepped in front of the door and she said, you're not leaving. And I said, yeah, actually I am. I'm twice as big as you.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked 2 more counselors to come to the door and they said, we're not leaving until the police come or someone from your church comes to get you. She says, because you're about 15 minutes away from killing yourself. And I said, yeah, I am. Probably out in the parking lot. And she said, I'm not going to let you leave. And she said, since we're going to be here, let's think out of the box. And she gave me another reason why I didn't like her and respect her. She said, let's think out of the box. How about a lobotomy? And I said, did that really come out of your mouth? A lobotomy? You want to turn me into a vegetable? And then she said, what about ECT? Electroconvulsive therapy. Shock treatment. And I was like, they still do that?
Mm-hmm.
She said, I've sent a couple patients to it. I don't know how they did. But she said, it's kind of called the last resort. She said, I'll let you go if you'll promise to call this lady that runs the program. And so after doing this for 40 years, I knew how to play the game. I knew how to say the right things for her to let me go. And just like in a mental hospital, if you say the right things, you get to go home. Mm-hmm. And I did call the lady because I kept my word. And she spent 3 hours on the phone with me, just trying to get me to come up for an interview. And it was at the University of Utah. And she finally talked me into it. At that point, I was so paranoid. The drive up there was just a nightmare for who took me, because every car was following us. Every helicopter was following us. Everybody looking at me was talking about me. I was just paranoid. But I finally got there, and I went through a very lengthy couple-hour interview with a psychiatrist, and we went over every single medication, and he just go down the list, and we go, yep. My wife and I go, yep, been on that one, been on that one, been on that one. And finally, he said, I think you'd be a good candidate for this. And I says, well, if it works, what, you better? He said, no, if it works, you're better. It's gone. And that's when I started to notice everything falling in place. We didn't have insurance. And we were told the cost with a discount. And it was a lot of money. And I'm like, it was a year's income. And I'm like, and there's a maybe it's going to work. Mm. And through my whole life, Susan, I promised I'd never kill myself while my mom was still alive, because it would just destroy her. And she had passed away, and it was the money from this inheritance we got from her that paid for the ECT. Wow. And it came just at the best time. And so I went through the process, and it was quite a process. I ended up having 13 treatments. My best friend took me up for my very first one. And they paralyze your body. It's going to give you a major seizure. Yeah, that's what they do. It doesn't last very long. And they'd given me too much medicine, and I started to choke on the medicine. But I couldn't swallow because I was paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And so I could have died, and I almost did. And my best friend, being my best friend, never told me about that until I was done 3 months later with all the treatments, because he wanted me to keep going.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was fine. They got it taken care of, and everything was fine. But I had a total of 13 treatments, and after 8 treatments, nothing. Nothing changed. I'm like, we're wasting all this money. And he reassured me sometimes it just, takes time. And on the 9th treatment, just a little spark. And I went, oh, I feel better. Nothing great, but I feel better. And I had such a support team around me. I had to be watched 24 hours a day because of the changes going on in my brain. I couldn't drive. I couldn't cook anything because I might leave the stove on and not remember. And so I had to have a lot of people from my neighborhood and my church come and babysit me. And when I'd have my treatments. And things got progressively better over the next few treatments. And we finished. And I was happy. The panic attacks were gone. The depression was gone. The funny thing about ECT is you have memory loss, which gets a little better, but I still things I can't remember. But everything changes your tastes. My taste in what I watched on TV totally flip-flopped. Things I used to like to eat, I hated now. Other things I used to hate, I loved. My taste in music totally changed. My wife would come in my studio and she'd go, "What are you playing?" And I said, "It's Frank Sinatra. It's amazing, where it used to be rock and roll." But the struggle was I didn't know how to be happy. I haven't been happy since I was 7 years old. I was now 51. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know what happy was. I didn't know how to make decisions. So it was a tough process. But again, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Is that the miracle for everybody, ECT? No, I don't promote it. I said, that's up to your doctor. Go talk to them. I don't know what's your miracle. Your miracle could be a therapy. It could be a doctor. It could be a tape. It could be a book. It could be just hard work. I don't know what your miracle is, but I give you the steps to put you in the position to receive a miracle and to have the belief and the faith in yourself. The miracles happen every day. They happen all over the world, every single day.
Yep.
And I tell people, never forget that you are one.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
We all are a miracle. So that's my ECT story.
Wow. I know when you first told me about that, I was just, blown away. I mean, I didn't even know either that they still did shock therapy and stuff. And,
they do, and it's not what we think. All we know is the horror movies and Frankenstein and
right.
Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And different people would take me up, and they just have them sit in the room. They want them to know this isn't scary.
Yeah.
And the whole process on the treatment takes like 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Wow.
I've, in the last 5 years, I've had maybe 3 panic attacks where I used to have probably 40 a day. And I laugh now because I'm like, oh my heck, I'm having a panic attack. That's kind of funny. I don't have those anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to learn about depression because my wife came home once and I was just in tears, and she's like, what's the matter? I said, I'm just super depressed. I think I need to go back and talk to the doctor. She says, what's going on? I said, well, this guy went into the school and shot all these kids. She said, honey, that's situational. Everybody's sad about that. But I didn't know what situational depression was. I didn't know what being overcome was. So the second miracle that happened for me was finding my life coach about 6 months after. I had him because things were missing. Again, I didn't know who I was. My brain had been basically rebooted, is what they call it. And I was trying to find out who I was.
Yeah.
And, through another miracle, I met her, and her training filled in all the blanks.
Wow.
And, I ended up becoming a life coach because it changed me so much, the program. And I went home to my wife, I'll never forget, in July, and I said, honey, I'm going to be a life coach. I just went through it. I am as happy as I've ever been since I was 7 years old. Life is just amazing.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, my son died.
Mm.
And there's the test. But I'd been so prepared for the worst day of my life and the worst experience of my life, my son dying, that God or the universe, whatever your listeners believe in, had prepared me for that day. Because if I still would have been depressed, I would have killed myself the same day. I wouldn't have been able to handle it. But I was in such a good place and prepared. And I think that's what the viewers need to understand is suffering from mental illness, God or the universe or a higher power, they're not mad at you. They're not punishing you. Life is fair. And what I had to do was find out why I went through everything I did.
Yeah.
And it was to sit in front of clients now and deal with clients and go, I know exactly how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Panic, stress, depression. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. Like you said, talking about it and being ashamed of it. One of my talks I call, modern day leprosy. People get treated like a leper.
Yeah.
You break your arm, they run over to sign your cast. If your head's broke, they turn and go the other way.
Yeah.
But the more I've talked about it, and the more I've been about it, they just don't know what to do or what to say.
Yeah.
And so being open and vocal about it, because we need help and we need a team around us.
Wow. What would you say to people who have loved ones in their life that are dealing with depression, and they don't seem to, like, how would you recommend they support someone who's depressed in their life?
It's a great question. One of the things that came from the book that I never thought was hearing from so many caregivers that read the book and went, okay, now I kind of understand where they're coming from, because they got to see into my darkness in my life.
Yeah.
I think when things they're in a better place on this roller coaster, my wife used to remind me, you're not the only one going through hell. Okay, me and your kids are going through hell too. This isn't easy for us. So it's not all about you right now. And one of the keys in my book is that we need to serve other people.
Yeah.
And we need to just be patient and understand that it's a sickness. Sometimes they're doing the best they can, even though they might not be doing anything. I remember being told to be brave, and getting out of bed was brave.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the store was brave. But I think just to have the love for them and encourage them just in little ways. I have been blessed that I'm coming up on my 34th wedding anniversary, and I had a spouse that didn't give up on me. And she encouraged me to just keep going. And, my kids, they didn't know which dad was coming home. The depressed, angry one, or the one that was doing pretty good and happy, or the one that was going to go cry in the bedroom for the rest of the day. And no. But I pushed myself, even if I could spend 20 good minutes with my kids every day, I'd do that.
Yeah.
And if the caregivers and those around understand how much energy that takes to put 20 minutes out of positive energy, it probably takes a whole day of energy just to do that little bit. So, if they're religious people, prayer is a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And just the encouragement and just being bold enough to say, I need some time to go cry too. I'm trying to deal with this.
Yeah.
But understanding that they're trying to do the best they can. And if it gets to a point where it's uncontrollable, then bring in help. Like I said, a couple of times I was taken to the psychiatric unit.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife shared that, you know what? We needed the break from you. It was like a vacation for us, for you to be there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Getting the help you need, but it was healthy for us too.
Yeah.
And
what is it like for you to hear that?
I appreciated the honesty. It was hard to hear sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think of fear, and that's what depression is, it's fear. That's what panic is. It's fear times 10,000. If you think of fear as an energy, it's an energy that shrinks us. It makes us selfish. It makes us criticize. It makes us jealous. It just constricts us. But if we learn through the process to trust just a little bit, life and those around you, and the help and the counsel and the medication and whatever it is, to trust it, that expands us and it helps us to love.
Yeah.
And it helps us to, one of the steps in my book that people don't like is that they need to get out and serve other people.
Mm-hmm.
To get out of that fear and to stop being so wrapped up in yourself.
Yeah.
Even if that's, I'm going to smile at 2 people today. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to open the door for somebody. That could be the goal for the whole day. my wife was real great at just recognizing those little moments as light bulb moments in my process.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Man, you smiled at that person, you opened the door for them. I know that was hard for you.
Yeah.
And so it's baby steps. It is such a journey of baby steps and little light bulb moments.
Yeah.
And so I tell the caregivers to be patient, but, they've got to do this themselves and kind of really learn to when you can say those things to them, when you can't. We kind of learn by our mistakes, but we have to be really careful. They're really fragile.
Yeah.
But doggone it, they're doing the best they can. And sometimes it's not very much. And I think that's where the book helped them to see the other side of it. Because my wife still, after I beat it, I speak about it now, I wrote a book about it, everything, she'll look at me and go, I still don't understand a panic attack. But she's seen me have thousands of them. I still don't understand depression. She just doesn't. She said, after 40 years, I understand a panic attack.
Yeah.
But she understood that I wasn't always going to be this way. And she had a lot of faith that we were going to beat this together.
Yeah.
So and serving people just helps us make changes to yourself.
Yep.
God said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of other people.
Yeah.
And it's just getting out, like I said, if it's 10 minutes a day, then you hit your goal.
Yep.
It's those baby steps. Just being persistent, but you got to have patience too. So I think so many people quit right before the miracle was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I almost did with that counselor that day that I was going to kill myself. I almost quit right before everything changed.
Well, thank God that she stepped in front of you. Yes.
And I did go back and apologize and thank her for that. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to, I was wondering, have you gotten complete with the things that happened to you when you were a child?
Yes.
Awesome.
And you were saying that so beautifully earlier. If you don't deal with it, then they're still molesting you.
Yep. That's right.
In your mind, they're molesting you over and over and over again.
Yep.
And I had people in my life that knew what was going on and didn't do anything to stop it.
Yeah.
And I had to forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
I had to unconditionally not expect anything. And it took me 6 months because I carried that darkness inside me of hatred for these people. Why didn't you do anything? I was 7 years old. And once I forgave them unconditionally, that day, Susan, everything started to go into process for me to get my miracle.
Yeah.
It took me stepping up to forgive.
Yeah. Oh, I just got huge goosebumps.
It literally started that day.
Yeah.
I had to get rid of that blackness, that anger, that hate that had just ruined me for 40 years. Within probably a year.
Yeah. So I'm just curious because you're well aware of limiting beliefs and how that shapes our thought process. What did you make that mean about you at that age?
I believe I've learned through coaching and understanding how the mind works and through my faith that everything that's happened to me in my life is part of my perfect journey.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have a great belief in God, and God doesn't have the word oops in his vocabulary. He doesn't make mistakes. Things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
So I was able to go back and see, okay, that was part of the journey. That was part of my classroom. We go through different classrooms in life. That was my classroom so that I could learn later as a coach to just have the greatest amount of empathy for people, because I had been at the bottom.
Yeah.
And to see people's stories and to just be able to, I think people that deal with mental illness and hard things have so much empathy for people.
Yeah.
Because they understand loneliness, they understand being hopeless, they understand just everything negative, but they're able to care, and that's why I want them to get out and serve other people. Just little things, even if it's little things. Because once we do that, even the little baby steps, it's like having a big freezer stocked full of steaks and meats and everything. And you don't give it away by serving other people, but every time you come back to it, and it's still full again. That's the blessings we get back from serving other people. And, you know, and just realizing that this is my classroom, this is what I got to go through. Some people's classroom is cancer, some is this. It's a sickness. And, you know, people, you know, you asked about the caregivers, you know, on my website, there's a sheet they can download of how to talk to people that have depression, what to say and what not to say. You know, again, it's all in your head. Well, yeah, actually it is all in my head. Or, you know, well, don't take those medications, they don't work. And just some of the things that have been said to me, it's just, I laugh now. But, you know, even if you're friends with somebody that dealt with mental illness, I've had one person in my life, one friend, come to me and say, you know what, I really want to be your friend, but I don't understand this whole depression thing, and I don't know how to act around you.
Yeah.
Just give me some tips so I don't say the wrong thing, but I want to be there for you. I've had one person do that.
Wow.
And he instantly became a dear friend of mine and still is.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing to go and say, you know, my wife was really good at saying, what can I do for you right now? What do you need?
Yeah.
But again, she needed her time too. And once I understood that, then, okay, she needs her time to de-stress. I'm going to get left home alone, and I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get through it for her. And it's just, the caregivers, it's a challenge. I feel for them, but this is your loved one's classroom. This is what they signed up for. This is what they got to deal with. But also to remember that there's a miracle out there for everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you know, I'm living proof of that.
Yeah.
That I found my purpose was to go through everything I went through so that I can look at people and they can feel comfortable because I've been through what they've been through. Not exactly, but I sure understand a lot better than other people.
Right. Yeah, you're able to listen for, I mean, you just have that experience. I mean, and that's, I mean, it's, I don't know, it reminds me of when I was younger. It was it was a school counselor, and they did these programs in my kids' school. And what I struggled with was she didn't have children of her own, but she suddenly, you know, like she just knows it all, but all she knew was book knowledge. And for some reason, I felt uneasy about that. Hold on one second. So yeah, just I feel like through my own experiences in life, working with someone who actually has that actual knowledge, the experiences, like I'm a mindset coach, I'm a transformation mindset coach, and I can say I've walked the mile in someone else's shoe who's experienced child abuse or sex abuse or rape or homelessness, because I've been there through all those things. And so I'm able to relate to people so much better. And I think it just automatically, well, not automatically, but creates a space of trust. And I don't know if you experience that same thing.
It's instant credibility.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through it, you think you're the only person having these feelings.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, listening to a tape program, which was one of the things that helped me. 3 o'clock in the morning infomercial on a lady that beat her depression. And she explained a panic attack. And I went, oh my gosh, she had them too.
Wow.
And I listened to this whole tape, and it helped save my life at that point. But one of the things I'd share with people dealing with this is you feel like a burden. You feel like a big burden to everybody. You're not. I remember talking to the leader of my local church congregation, and he just looked at me and says, but Greg, you're going to be a grandfather in a few months. It's the greatest thing in the world. And I went, no, I've set a goal to kill myself before she's born, because I don't want her to have me as a grandfather. And again, don't give up. My grandkids are the joy of my life right now. I have 4 of them. And she was the first. And she was born right in the middle of my treatments.
Oh, wow.
The day she was born, so I don't remember anything of her birth at all. But there's pictures of me, and I just slept while the baby was born. But my grandkids are the joy of my life, and if I would have gave up, again, that fear, that's so selfish.
Yeah.
And even though I tried to commit suicide, I never wanted to die. You just want the pain to end.
Right, right.
And what I discovered was being depressed is like having this gray filter on when everybody's seeing colors and happiness and you're just kind of in a fog. And it's like walking around in a big black room. And what I tell people is the light switch is there somewhere. And I had to search for a long time to find that light switch. But I was the only one that could find it and flip it.
Yeah.
And once I flipped it, 5 years ago, not everything got perfect. My life didn't get perfect. Again, my son died. But it was like I had a dimmer switch on it, and it would just slowly get brighter and brighter, where I'm glad I didn't give up. But setting that goal that I'm going to get better, I'm going to do whatever I did. I did everything I was asked by therapists. I took every test. I read every book. I listened to every tape. I was a straight A student. And I think they had their place because they kept me alive until my miracle happened. But yeah, I got the most help from people that'd been there and been through it because I could relate to them.
Yeah.
I'm not, I speak and I tell people I'm not a doctor. I'm the patient.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, I have an honorary doctorate degree that I gave myself from 40 years. I think I earned an honorary doctorate.
That's right.
But it's interesting for them to hear the other side of it.
Yeah,
This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like. This is what you could have done better.
Yeah.
But if we look at life as a classroom, and we look at and just get off of why am I suffering? Why do I have to deal with this? Why do I have to suffer? Why do I have to deal with this every day? Instead of, well, what can I learn from this?
Mm,
What am I supposed to learn from going through this?
yeah.
What am I dealing with this classroom teaching me? And again, it stays in the dark a long time, and I finally figured it all out, and everything was for a reason.
Yeah.
Where I am now.
That's because you started asking yourself questions. It's because it sounds like for you, as you were searching for answers, that's when the light kind of kept getting brighter for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you
like you
were
said,
dealing with the process of being depressed, and but it sounds like at the same time there was another part of you that was like, what do I do? Well, how do I, you were asking those questions. You know, it even says in the Bible, you ask and you shall receive.
yep.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I actually love affirmations versus affirmations, because
Yeah.
it's hard to believe affirmations if you don't believe what you're saying to yourself. But if you turn the affirmation into a question, then your brain just automatically searches for the answer, and then and then of course reality will manifest itself
Right.
for the answer. So it sounds like you were asking lots of questions, you got lots of support, especially from people who have either been there or have worked through a lot of it. And then you mentioned earlier that you have a website that people could go to. Would you share that with us now so that we could, so the listeners could have a place to go and take a look at any information that you have there about depression?
Yeah, there's a lot of free information on there, podcasts, and I've done interviews. It's gregthreadgold.com, and Threadgold is a little tricky because it doesn't have an A in it. It's THREDGOLD. So TH, the color red, and the color gold, Threadgold. So gregthreadgold.com, and they can contact me there. They'll see resources, and there's so much free information on there
Okay.
for them. And again, the handout, how to talk to people dealing with depression, how to be a friend when somebody has depression. I think one of the other things, Susan, I was just thinking from what you said, that helped me is I started to research people that had depression.
Mm,
If you walk in my office right now, I have these plaques up here. I have
yeah.
Washington, I have Einstein, I have Lincoln, I have Michelangelo,
Oh, you're
I
kidding.
have Beethoven, Oprah, Ellen DeGeneres, Jim Carrey, so many presidents, almost the greatest people in each industry suffered from either terrible depression, anxiety, and they accomplished everything they did not because they had it, but in spite of it. And there's a list in my book, and it just goes on and on of all these amazing people,
Yeah.
presidents, leaders, artists, musicians. And so I showed people this, and I said, that's a pretty cool group to be part of.
Yeah.
The
That
most
is
talented
pretty
people in
amazing.
the world. And they kind of go, yeah, that's kind of cool. And you see
Yeah.
some people, they go through it, and you kind of see little steps on the news now with people coming out talking about it. I
Yeah.
suffer from depression. I suffer from anxiety. I'm in Utah. I read a book by Donny Osmond that he had such an anxiety disorder that he had to perform absolutely perfect, that he would cancel shows 2 minutes before the show started because I can't be perfect tonight.
Wow.
And he went to treatment, and just his anxiety disorder and how he dealt with it. And again, he was somebody I could relate to. He deals with it.
Mm-hmm.
And just so many famous people, presidents of the United States, leaders of corporations. And it's a great list, and you go, oh, I'm part of that list.
That's cool. Yeah, you could actually add your name to that list. So
Yes.
when you guys get Greg's book, The Depression Miracle, go to that list and see who's all on there and put your own name. Write it in. Don't be ashamed.
No, and the list goes on and on. And what am I
Yeah,
supposed to achieve in spite of what I have?
yeah, that's good.
And you know, it just, and you know, I've seen it my whole life. People go through terrible accidents, or they're put in a wheelchair or whatever, and they always ask, "Would you do it again?" And they every time say yes. And sometimes I didn't understand that, but now I do. If I had to go through it all again to see the changes in the lives of people I work with now,
Mm-hmm.
people that have read the book, yeah,
Yep.
I'd do it all again because I knew the purpose of it.
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
to help all these people that are struggling.
That's right. It gets you up in the morning.
It does, and it
Yep.
makes a difference.
Well, Greg, I just want to thank you for being on the show, and just, man, acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. It's huge, and I don't think this topic gets talked about enough. So, you know, I would love to hear feedback from the listeners. Share your comments, ask questions. I will have Greg's information posted in my Facebook page, and I'm sure you can also connect with Greg on Facebook as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the listeners with, Greg, before we end the show?
I think the greatest, I'm a quote guy. I love quotes. And Churchill, I always like Churchill because he's just bottom line guy. To the listeners, he said, when you're going through hell, just keep going.
Mm.
And that's what I did. And that's why I got to have a water fight on Memorial Day with my grandkids. And the joy they bring me when I could have gave up.
Yeah.
And start to ask, why am I going through this? And, you know, I was challenged by my coach, well, what are you going to do about it to change the world? And I went, I don't know, I'll write a book. And suddenly it was all over the world. And we can do that. And again, miracles happen every day. They are one. You don't remember anything else I said. You are a miracle.
That's right.
No matter where you're at.
Wow. Thank you so much, Greg. That was beautiful. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for chiming in today and catching today's interview with Greg Threadgold. And I will catch you on the flip side on Friday.
Right. Thanks, Susan.